There can't be a lot of money in mariachi music. I mean, between the matching suits and those weird shaped guitars,
They have expenses, those guys.
crazy sombreros, those dudes have been relegated to subways and bus stations so people can throw nickels at them.
I think some of these record stores might need to change their sale policy. Due to an overstock error, customers are required to take home a copy of the Three Dog Night Christmas album with every purchase. No exceptions.
Silly string is used by A, psychiatrists who use it to analyze which shapes patients see, B, by circus clowns to make their wigs stick, C, by the military to detect booby traps, D, by surgeons to draw on patients.
These are the types of people that ask questions like, what time does Uber close? And of course, if they ask that, the correct response is, I think around the same time Amazon does.
This is the Snaggletooth Extreme Metal Podcast.
Episode 9. You can't be stopped.
Also, small disclaimer. This is the second week of my sickness, so if I sound weird, that's why.
She's slightly sniffly. Yeah.
Getting better.
Yeah.
Lower. 4-mile run to the rainstorm thunderstorm the other day probably didn't help.
What happened was we got home in time to run, and the storm was coming. But of course, Google told us that it wasn't going to rain for a couple of hours. That was not true. But I had to make the comment, wow, it looks like we're going to run into the apocalypse because it was just like storm clouds. I think that was karma because we literally got as far away from the house as possible. We're 2 miles away and the end of the world happened. I mean, we're completely soaked. Lightning's flashing, thunder's rolling. I'm running through 4-inch puddles because why bother at that point?
It really helps your running acumen if every time the lightning flashes, you yell, fuck. Yeah, that helps. Yeah.
Yeah, I just remember thinking, I would really like to survive this,
Some very nice gentleman in a Jeep offered to drive me home, and I said, not today, Ted Bundy.
I mean, I didn't get any offers, but whatever. Anyway. So don't run in the apocalypse. It's not a good idea. So
especially not with a head cold.
So check this out, right? So I'm online, one of the metal speakeasies that I frequent, right? And one of the dudes brought up the fact that he's a metal fan. Concert tickets are so cheap. I'm like, what? He says, I'm going to see Gama Bomb and tickets are only 13 euros or something, right? So I thought about that all day. I was like, do people choose music based on affordability?
Are there people who choose music the way they choose floor cleaner or paper clips?
Yeah.
What would be the cheapest type of music if that's the criterion? For some reason, it seems to me like smooth jazz would be pretty affordable. I think that's because most hold music is jazzy. Your call is very important to us. That sort of thing. They're just giving that shit away.
They're playing it willy-nilly in the department store speakers. You're dancing down in the food court. You ever think to yourself, I can't believe the saxophone solo is free.
I would imagine polka is pretty cheap. I mean, they play it in high school gymnasiums. What if there's a whole underground network of dirt cheap polka festivals where you can see 6 fat Dutchmen for the price of a schnitzel?
Ich verlage. Frankie Yankovic. Sofort anzuhören. And meanwhile, Taylor Swift fans are out there getting a second mortgage to sit in stadium parking lot after booking her ridiculously expensive airfare to fly to the state she tells them to go to. Whatever.
Or do you judge it on the amount of free concerts? What kind of music has such little demand that they have to put on free concerts? I mean, even the washed up bands at the state fair, you still have to pay admission.
Yeah.
There can't be a lot of money in mariachi music. I mean, between the matching suits and those weird shaped guitars.
They have expenses, those guys.
Crazy sombreros. Those dudes have been relegated to subways and bus stations so people can throw nickels at them. Tragic.
In terms of like the cheapest concerts, I think it'd have to be some kind of like corporate Christian rock, like a cross between an Amy Grant and an Amway rally. Mutual funds for Jesus or something like that. Or how about this? Four dudes that work at the same branch of H&R Block, they get together and play ska covers or something on the weekends. I'm not seeing a lot of demand there. They're not going to be moving the merch, I don't think. No matter how well they nail the I don't practice Santeria encore, There's an element to country and bluegrass that seems like affordable to the working man. And consider this. We took a trip to Gatlinburg last August to get a pallet of wood chips and managed to catch the Rocky Mountain Trio at Zeke's filling station. I've never heard Sue Studio played on a banjo. Interesting.
Or maybe you could look at the lowest price records and CDs on sale at record stores and yard sales. I remember being in line behind a guy haggling about the price on a vinyl copy of Linda Ronstadt's greatest hits. It was 88 cents.
I think some of these record stores might need to change their sale policy. Due to an overstock error, customers are required to take home a copy of the Three Dog Night Christmas album with every purchase. No exceptions. Another thing I was thinking about was are there people that have heard like The Marriage of Figaro and thought, that sounds beautiful, but you got to have a tuxedo for opera? That music sounds expensive.
Those little glasses.
Okay, you want to talk about our feature interview?
Our feature interview this week is with Dave Utah Veroff and Sam Shinners from the Wisconsin death metal band Ruin Dweller. We have a great discussion with Dave and Sam that covers everything from choosing their moniker to body farms to Debbie Gibson, Luke LeMay. So stay tuned for that.
All right, let's get it going. This is Dimensional Slaughter 2024 from Ruin Dweller. Okay, let's talk about Patreon. The site is patreon.com/snaggletoothpodcast. And for $6.66 a month, you get the Scooby-Doo Mystery Machine full of Mark and Stace every week.
Yes, it is true. We have exclusive content only available to our Patreons. So if you'd like a deeper dive into our lives, reviews about things that we don't do here, as well as recipe tips, I am always coming up with killer stuff in the kitchen. So get over there.
Repotting plants in hot pans. I mean, you just can't get this anywhere. I'm going to put up some book reviews. I've put up a bunch already. I still have to put up the Tom Werman book, The Producer. It's great. So I do a review of that. And also Alex Van Halen's new book called Brothers that I am in the process of reading now. So you want to hear whether these books are any good or not? Head on over to Patreon.
So you keep the show going. It takes a lot for us every week to put everything together, as well as shows. We will going to see Undergang Torture Rack at the Metro on the 31st of this month. So also hop over to our Instagram page because I always put up live streams while we're at the show.
Very good. All right, I'm starting to get a little chilled because I think it's time. Hit it.
And now it's time for Obnoxious Trivia!
All right, I've not looked at these, even though you wrote them, 2 weeks ago? Or
Yeah,
something?
I got a little overzealous with my obnoxious trivia.
She sent me obnoxious trivia questions, and I'm like, you don't have them for 2 weeks. Appreciate the zeal. Anyway. Okay, lay it on me. Give me a crusher.
I was trying to get one of those bravocados. All right. Who created the world's first commercial soft drink? Was it A, a doctor in France, B, a drugstore owner in England, C, a jeweler in Germany, or D, a sub shop owner in Philadelphia?
I'm going to think it's not in the U.S. I will say C, a jeweler in Germany.
You are correct. It was
Yes.
Schweppes.
Excellent.
Schweppes.
I totally picked that because it's the most preposterous of the four. Yeah.
Yeah, he created Schweppes.
Interesting. So
was-
that was the first soft drink, Schweppes.
Yes, it was, and that was commercially
Was it good?
produced.
I think it was good, wasn't it? I had some. We had it when we were kids.
Yeah.
Schweppes. It was all right. It's like ginger ale, right? Okay.
I think it was originally supposed to be medicinal, but
All right. Why don't we just stop right there? I nailed it, and we're done 100%. All right. Anyway, go ahead.
Silly string is used by A, psychiatrists who use it to analyze which shapes patients see. B, by circus clowns to make their wigs stick. C, by the military to detect booby traps. D, by surgeons to draw on patients.
Silly string.
It's not just for graduations anymore.
This is what I'm paying my health insurance for. I'm going to say D, by surgeons to draw on patients.
It's actually used by the military to detect booby traps.
I'm actually relieved at that. That was just...
They spray the silly
The
string in
appendix
it.
is right here.
This is where the incision.
Yeah. No, what do they do with it?
They spray it, and then the fine tripwires. It will stick to them, so they're able
Oh,
to
okay,
see
that
them.
makes sense. It
Yeah.
makes sense, yeah. See, if the Predator had had that kind of forethought, that movie would have ended totally differently. Yeah, so. All right, I'm back to sucking again. Let's do it. What do we got? Number 3.
Mountain goats in Washington Olympic National Park have developed a taste for what from the hikers there? A, Cliff Bars, B, Doritos, C, canvas tents, or D, human urine.
Washington Olympic National Park. I'm going to say B, Doritos.
It's D, human urine.
Ew.
They cannot get enough of it, and people hiking, of course, there's no creature comforts. They pee, and it's actually become a problem because it's getting the goats closer to people. And you
I'll
really
take the
don't want that.
Doritos.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
They like
Okay.
salt or something. It's crazy, right?
That's weird. Okay. Yeah. All right, let's round it out. Number 4.
What country has more electric cars per capita at 15.5%? Is it A, United States, B, Norway, C, Scotland, or D, England? They have the biggest percentage of people who own electric cars.
I'll say D, England.
Norway.
Should have known. These smug fuckers. Vikings driving Teslas. Ha. All right, well, this has been Obnoxious Trivia. Okay, it's time for our Snaggletune. And this week, I decided to take a stand against people that can't text or email. This is called You're Doing It Wrong. Proof positive that written communication just isn't for everyone. Here are some cardinal rules. Let's start with texting.
Texts are a medium for short, sprightly messages. I stopped at the store for Brillo pads. Mom's rash looks worse. This cheese smells funny. This sort of thing. There are people that text not just a long-winded rant. It's a structured story with rising action, plot twists, and multiple character arcs.
I'm really concerned about the number of massages Jim is getting, and I don't think anyone should be getting massages more than once a day, much less several times a day. And then there was that one day in April when he had scones, a massage, brunch, a second massage, and then a third one after visiting the snowball stand. I mean, it just doesn't seem normal, but then again, maybe it's just me because I'm upset. My kneecaps are vibrating again, even though I made a point to cut down on evaporated milk products. Pistachios. Brevity, people, come on.
My sister is queen on the text message rant, telling some story about how she hates her boss. Everything hurts after tromping around in heels. Her husband looks like a character from the Far Side, and her daughter objects to the additives and coloring in Jolly Rancher.
Okay, let's move on to email etiquette. Here are some rules not to break. Number 1, reply to all only when appropriate. If the secretary is getting lunch orders for the big sales meeting, all 119 people in copy don't need to know that you're opting for the Himalayan burrito burger.
New topic, new email chain. There is no need to keep alive the original email entitled 1998 March Madness Office Pool when the subject is this week's inventory numbers.
It also goes the other way. Don't create a new email for every single thought you have. 9:55. We need to order printer cartridges. 11:15 a.m. I can't send out the sales numbers because I can't print. 2:30 p.m. I'm trying to print through the coffee machine. Number 4, don't share email addresses. This is common with small businesses. How much money is being saved by sharing a single email address? I signed up for 1 year of GoDaddy one time, and they gave me 15 free email boxes. Why then do I get emails that say, Mark, this is actually Tommy's wife, Valerie. He had to run to Pep Boys to get wiper blades. These are the types of people that ask questions like, what time does Uber close? And of course, if they ask that, the correct response is, I think around the same time Amazon does.
Email signature blues. Not sure what's more irritating, no email signature or too much. No email signature, it's just another message from nobody likes Boris at hotmail.com, indicating he's locked out of the building. Really, George, how about a phone number? Too much email signature with blinking lights, kitty cats walking across the bottom of the screen, reenactments of the crucifixions, fax number, telex number, WhatsApp number. Christ, I can't even find the message in this mess.
I'll close it out with the to whom it may concern formality flex. You know, the legalese at the bottom of corporate emails. This email and any attachments are intended solely for the designated recipient. If you have received this email in error, you must immediately delete it and notify the sender. Okay, Chad, this is about printer toner, not the location of our subs in the South Pacific, so let's take it easy. All right, I can't take any more. Let's play a song. This is Death Will Become You. Okay, let's talk about Coffee AM because we ran out of coffee this week and I had a hissy fit.
Yeah, we have to somehow put a gauge on this or a hot button.
Yeah.
When we are out of coffee from Coffee AM, and we had to do it today, we ran out to the local store. It's never the same. The flavors are never as good. They always taste a little cheesy when the flavor stuff comes from the store.
You don't get as much either. It always seems like you get less coffee. Yeah.
From Coffee AM, you can choose a half pound or a full pound. I usually get the full pound. I just placed another order with them, and it will be FedEx directly to our door. They have delicious type of coffee. You know what I even noticed today? They have coffee on sale. They had spring flavors on sale. So they also are a rewards program. So after a while, you accumulate points and you can take money off your order. But there is no better coffee, so use our link. It will save you off your first order, and you too can get delicious coffee delivered right to your door.
It was a rough week. Not only did we run out of coffee, we ran out of alcohol. And that's much worse because here's what happens. Stace and I are busy doing show stuff after we get home from work or interviews or whatever. 9:30, we go to crack open some wine. We got this much. So there's no beer. So that's when the science experiments start.
God.
I got some triple sec and seltzer. Did I mix them together? Will that be anything good? I'm ready to go to the freaking medicine cabinet to try to find some numbing agents. Anyway. All right, it's time for Bombastic Plastic.
Bombastic.
Okay, this week for Bombastic Plastic, we're going to show off the 3 CD reissue of Voivod's 84 classic War and Pain. This came out in 2004, and I bought it in a matter of minutes. Looking back at some of the punters throwing their hat into the mid-80s thrash metal raffle, some were clearly more evolved than others. Some of them were already aping the emerging Big Four. But with the possible exception of Celtic Frost, no band was more committed to their own creative devices than Voivod. They were the wild turkey, charging a brigade of hunters armed with nothing but talons and a beak. They were the kid in science class, shattering bananas with liquid nitrogen, while the rest of us could barely turn on a Bunsen burner.
Utterly dedicated to their interplanetary war-plundering cyberpunk concepts and refusing to be held back by the musical limitations, or for that matter, the English language. Voivod's War and Pain glows with mad scientist ambition right down to Away's iconic do-it-yourself artwork. Despite being a Metal Massacre alumni, this is the only Voivod album released on Metal Blade, and it's a rough ride. Nearly every track launches with a few tappity taps from Away's blocky-sounding kit before ripping into some awkward thrashy gallop. The lyrics are infinitely charming. See Iron Gang. We're always going fast when it's time to make it high. Don't listen to this scrap. Tonight you're gonna fight.
What?
And the performances are gloriously unhinged. Suck your bone and live for violence. Lead the charge with the fractal guitar angles, screechy bass stabs, and Piggy's trademark skronk chaos already taking shape. Let's play a song. This is Iron Gang.
You can hear the discharge and venom kernels in Voivod's early firmament, sure, but there's a whiff of Sabbath, too, lurking in the intro to the title track. Overall, War and Pain is more groundbreaking than it is memorable, but it's impossible to resist its pure, punked-up, cliche-free metalness. The Iron Gang had arrived. Now let's talk about the bonus material on this. That's what elevates this to must-have territory. CD2 features the complete Anachronism live demo from '83. Snake's vocals have this early garage black metal rasp. The drums sound like truck tires hitting potholes, and Piggy is just tearing it the fuck up the whole time. There are about 74 covers on the original cassette, and sadly they're not included here, but I highly recommend tracking them down on YouTube because you're talking covers from Budgie, Tank, Priest, and Sweet Savage, among others, all filtered through the glorious racket of pre-literate Voivod.
Even better, CD3 has a second live set just 1 year later, and it's already wall-to-wall originals. They're test driving the raw material 2 years before that album would drop, and it's nuts. If you thought Korgold the Exterminator or Ripping Headaches were a rough hewn on the album, wait till you hear these unholy beta versions. Piggy's rhythm tone sounds like a 70s Volare with holes in the muffler. Away somehow keeps the whole thing from collapsing, barely, blasting to a crowd of 19 people, including bartenders. If you're the kind of lunatic who wants 4 versions of The Blower recorded before 1984, this reissue is for you. And if you're not that kind of lunatic, you will be by the time this set's done with you.
Okay, let's play Condemned to the Gallows. Okay, why don't you start interview?
We had a great chat here with the guys from Ruin Dweller. We had lots of burning questions. I think they seem posed right on the edge of something big.
Yeah.
I can feel the build, and I think really by next year,
Yeah.
explosions.
Absolutely, take it away. So, what, in your opinion, makes Madison? It seems like such a hotbed for great music and different genres. Just your opinion.
Is it something in the water? What is
Yeah,
that?
exactly right.
Well, I was thinking about this question because you had mentioned it in your review, and I think a big thing was, I mean, Madison, I think, has always been sort of like a pretty progressive, like hippie college town. Like there's a lot of activism in the '70s and things like that. But if you go to the '90s, you have a lot of significant things going on. Like you have Butch Viggs with sounds. What is it, Sam? I'm sorry, I cannot remember the name.
Oh, that's funny because you're talking about bands from Madison, but like Butch Vig from Garbage, and like I honestly knew him too, mostly. Like I knew he was from Garbage, but like he did a remix of a Korn song, and they overplayed that shit so much for like 1 year when I was in middle school.
What was his studio called though?
Smart Studios.
Smart Studio. That's it. And so he has connections to like the Smashing Pumpkins, to Nirvana. I mean, a lot of it is like they recorded the drums in Madison, but then scrapped it and like recorded it in LA or things like that. I'm sure I'm getting the history all wrong because I don't really care as much about that stuff as a lot of people do. But
I think at least some of Siamese Dream by the Smashing Pumpkins was recorded there too.
I think Adore as well was like recorded in Boston. But
that's my favorite Smashing Pumpkins album.
I guess where I'm going with this is like, you know, it seemed like there was a lot of inspiration in the 90s and a lot of attention on Madison that inspired a lot of people to start bands or to get into like, you know, writing their own music and trying to kind of take it very seriously. I mean, some other notable bands are like Killdozer is from Madison, you know, Last Crack. And then in the later on in the late 90s, early 2000s, you also had like bands like Bongzilla who were doing a lot of cool stuff in the underground. So, you know, I grew up in Madison and, you know, I found it to be like a very like conducive environment for being in a band and being creative. There was like all these venues that, you know, like OK's Corral that had sort of like this almost like legendary status because like these amazing bands came through and, you know, people always like talked about the shows, like, you know, in these sort of hush whispers about like, you know, how like you really had to be there to experience this like very happening underground scene in Madison in the 90s.
Also, Milwaukee, Morbid Saint. We had him on the show.
Yeah,
Killer.
They from Kenosha?
They're from Sheboygan.
Oh, that's right, Sheboygan.
Which I find hilarious, just because that's where like, you know, I would go there to visit my grandparents when I was a kid, and like I don't know, it's like it's just because of that association. I was like, what? Sheboygan's like old people, and like not like rock and roll dad old people, like old people.
Like old people. Yeah, he told us that their goal was to be able to be super tight, super drunk. So it wasn't good enough to be able to play the song sober. They practiced, you know, they wanted to be that tight. So of course, when they played sober, they were ridiculously tight. But yeah, they wanted to be able to be hammered and still tight.
That is a really great, like at least just having like boiled it down to that formula. Like the earnestness of it alone is kind of like
Great. Yeah.
Well, it's always a weird realization when you play a show and you're like, I was way too sober for that show. I wasn't loose enough. I mean, if you don't drink, obviously that doesn't really happen.
Right.
But I mean, I do like to have like a beer or two just to kind of loosen up. And when I've hit the stage and I've been totally sober, I'm just kind of like I feel stiff, you know. And so I get what they're trying to do there.
Yeah.
So what kind of local bands do you guys have the most fun when you do a show with?
Well, one of my really good friends of mine, favorite local Madison band is called our Tubal Cain, and
Tubal Cain.
I mean, their music is just so amazing, and they're such wonderful people. But you know, as far as like the most fun, I would say there's a band from Madison called Yotuma that we play with quite a bit, and they have some just crazy maniac fans. They're a little bit younger than us, and those shows usually go pretty hard.
That's cool. Yeah, it's really Madison is a hot spot. I mean, we've been doing this long enough that we see. You know, there's Madison, there's Austin, there's Portland, there's obviously New York, Seattle. Yeah, but I mean, those seem to be the creative wells, you know, in terms of good bands. So
yeah. It's cool. And it seems like it never really like it just hasn't really like lulled very much in the last like 20 years. I think we're seeing more metal now, but there was like a really big like garage rock scene in Madison. There's always been a big indie scene in Madison. I mean, it's a very like very heavy music city, you know.
Very cool. Yeah.
You guys look like you've been playing a lot of shows as of recent. What's the weirdest or worst thing that ever happened to you during a live set?
I think it's worth mentioning just off the bat that like our first show ever, a dude who was like super tall and like a barbarian looking dude, like wearing just Carhartt overalls, like killed the pit before it started because he was just running around. And like and as we were like started playing, he was doing push-ups, and the first picture of us ever taken live is in this dark place, but this guy is actually like doing push-ups, except he kind of almost looks like this like levitating corpse, like.
Oh wow.
And yeah, that was just funny because like again, you know, like it was like, yep, your first show is the one that one guy shows up. And like some of my friends had brought their like kids to their like first metal show for that, and they had like the headphones and everything, but it was like, you know, it was like, damn it, like that guy is literally about to like plow over a toddler.
Oh my. You should have drafted him to be your roadie. You know, he could have carried shit. You know.
Yeah, I don't know. I know we didn't. I think I just wanted to stop smelling him. So, you know.
That says it all. Yeah.
We were at a little show in a bar scene, Atre Billis, and this guy started like doing like these weird cartwheel dances, and he knocked over their entire merch table. Like, everybody had to like run over and help him put it back together. I was like, really? Maybe not with the cartwheels.
Yeah, yeah. I recently, well, like a year ago or so, when me and my girlfriend had just started seeing each other, we were at a show, and there was a guy who like did this like donkey kick where he went down on his front hands and like kicked his feet up, and it was just like both his feet were perfectly like a foot from both of our faces.
Oh my God.
I remember like, and it was just like, okay, wow, didn't, you know, like, it's like, look behind you before you do that or something.
Yeah. I always picture the conversation with like his girlfriend the next morning where he goes, I don't remember the show. How was it? Well, you kicked over the merch table, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's not a good conversation at all, you know.
I mean, you follow where your kicks are going to go very well if you're even going to do that, you know. More in the arms, I think.
You're supposed to hit people, not merch tables.
That's right. That's right.
How did the band come together in the building at the beginning, and kind of how is it different from other projects that you were on, and maybe what did you learn coming into this from being in other bands that were like good lessons?
Yeah.
So we formed in kind of roughly 2016, 2017 zone. It was when I had just moved back to Madison recently. I was living in California for a long time. And the first incarnation that would become Ruin Dweller was actually more of like a straight ahead, like thrash metal band, or like kind of doing like more of like a crossover thing. And long story short, that kind of fell apart. Different people didn't really want to do it, and we lost our practice space, got a new practice space, and then when we started again, I kind of saw it as an opportunity to really do what I kind of had a moment where I asked myself, what do I actually want to do? And I'm like, well, I want to do old school death metal. And so that's what I started doing. I, took my guitar, tuned it down to C, and just started writing like more slower, kind of like eviler, heavier, more death metal oriented stuff. And soon after that, Sam joined the band and kind of brought his sort of like his style to it. Nick and Brooks both were jamming in like the thrash thing that I was doing before Ruin Dweller. So they were kind of just like, they just kind of came with it all. And I think the thing with Ruin Dweller for me, and I'll let you kind of speak about it next, Sam, but like for me, the big difference is that, I'm traditionally in the past, I've played in just straight ahead, either death metal bands or black metal bands. And Nick has like a really heavy kind of crust and punk background. So he brings that style. So a big thing for me is sort of learning how to play on that strength and kind of drawing in influences from bands that are a little bit more like that, like bands like Entombed, Autopsy, Deceased for sure. So it's more like we're creating a sound that I think just resonates with all the members. So did you want to say a couple things, Sam?
Yeah. I think what the biggest thing for me is that I've always like I got into metal through punk more or less. And like I love both equally, I would say, you know. I'd want to say like, you know, I'm kind of a metal punk. But yeah, I think in that way, like a lot of my favorite metal is metal made by punks or has like that kind of sensibility in there. And you know, like dirtiness, edginess, like some balls to it, I guess. Yeah.
Pretty cool.
I have kind of a thing too where like I every album we make, I want us to have a DB part, and I want to make sure we never stop doing that as a policy. Like there's just at least one somewhere in the album.
Well, what was kind of interesting is that me and Sam are pretty close in age, and we went to the same high school together. We're a lot closer now than we were back then, but we both started going to shows in Madison around the same time, and at that time, because we weren't 21 yet, we went to tons and tons of basement and house shows.
It was bumping.
And for some reason, yeah, this was a super good time to be doing this, and it seemed like every underground punk and crust and grind and sometimes metal band would come through, and they would play either at a basement or a community center or something like that where we could go to being under 21. And so a lot of times I don't know about you, Sam, but I felt like I kind of was like the metalhead hanging out with like the punks. And you know, that had a huge influence on me. So because like even though I was just getting into bands like Cannibal Corpse and Deicide and Iron Maiden and Metallica and all like the classic, you know, bands that, you know, that people associate with metal. There's that punk and crust in the periphery all the time. And so I feel like it totally subconsciously influenced me. And I mean, and not just subconsciously, I mean, it directly influenced me because I was there just watching all the bands, and it was really, really cool. I have fond memories of that time.
Yeah. I want to ask you about the Ruin Dweller character.
It seems like it could be.
Is it like a specific mythological, or does it have a symbolic meaning, or does it talk about that?
I would say that like first and foremost, I think I can't really write a song without having a mythology about it, like including the lyrics, but even if it's instrumental, you know, and in the way that like I just generally like very epic, over the top things. Yeah, and I think I actually do, like we've talked before, but I would like there to be kind of a character, and for some reason in my mind, I envision it as what the sprite looks like. That's called a ghost in Final Fantasy 1 for Nintendo Entertainment System. Very awesome. Specific, but like it's basically a Grim Reaper sort of thing. But like,
right, okay.
You know, it's like an undead sorcerer in the ruins that like lures people there, or like entire armies go there and like they all just die from like the Ruin Dweller, and the air of ruin makes his magic stronger. Or there, you know, we haven't even determined more of an entity. You know,
I think kind of going back to the question that you asked before, it's like one of the ways I think that we've grown as a band is we've developed more of our lyrical concepts and kind of honed in on like the themes that we want to talk about lyrically and aesthetically. And so I mean, a big one that I think we all landed on was kind of like post-apocalyptic themes, like and you know, kind of like what happens after the end of the world, so to speak. And if you think about the name Ruin Dweller, it's kind of a double meaning, because you have literal the like what Sam was talking about, like the dweller in the ruins, like the creature or the person or the thing that's living in the ruins. And then you could also look at it as like ruin, like to dwell on ruin, you know, to sort of be, you know, obsessed by destruction or obsessed by, but like either past destruction or future destruction, or just to dwell on it, like to ruminate on it. And that was a big inspiration for me, like when I came up with the band name, because it's just like it's so difficult to find a name that like has some meaning but also sounds really cool. And I remember just being like, oh, that's pretty awesome. Like we could do something with that.
Yeah, yeah, and I've kind of liked that. The name, like in the way that like music's a very spiritual thing for me. Like there's some places I've lived well in the band that were rather ruinous, dare I say, even just the condition of the building. But so like it's just interesting how I think I even kind of channeled that in thinking about like dwelling in a ruin, and how even you could think of society as a ruin we're dwelling in. And yeah.
So I kind of have a deep post-apocalyptic, it's hard to say, question for you. Okay. So if you were stuck in this post-apocalyptic wasteland and you could only bring one album, one weapon, and one snack, what would they be?
Well, one weapon, one snack. The snack would be some kind of any kind of Reese's I could get my hands on, chocolate peanut butter, candy of some kind. The weapon would be a gun that shot swords. And
You pick up the swords after you shoot them, right?
yeah.
Reload. Yeah.
Yeah, they're reusable because it's the future.
Right.
And oh god, album's so hard because I'm really Death Cult Armageddon by Dimmu Borgir.
Okay. Yeah. That's a great album.
I would say for snacks, I would do dried pineapples.
Nice.
For weapon, I would do like a
Dried pineapples.
Yeah, a pineapple. A pickaxe, because it's something that you can defend yourself with, but you can also use it as like a digging tool or like something to like, like break stones or wood or something like that. So it's very practical, but you can also defend yourself.
Dig yourself a hole and remember what toilets felt like.
Yeah, exactly. And then album, that is such a hard one because I would have to. I think I'm going to go with Storm of the Light's Bane by Dissection.
Cool. Yeah.
So you like that one better than Somberlane? So close.
It's tough, man, because like I feel like the Somberlane, like the songs are like so good and they're so epic sounding. There's just so much going on. What I really like about Storm of the Light's Bane is they kind of start to incorporate the more like extreme drumming, and it's really, really fast. So to me, I find this like, and Storms of the Light's Bane is the one that like that was the first one that I got. So I kind of worked my way back to the Somberlane. And I mean, they're both masterpieces easily. But I would say, Storm of the Light's Bane, just because it's like those songs and those riffs are just like forever inspirations to me, and forever like just in my head all the time.
Oh, yeah. The guitar playing is just off the charts. Yeah.
It's just like
I'd never thought of it, but like just like the Storm of Light's Bane, so like the Bane part of it just kind of makes me think of like that entire album Baneified, and be like like the angel cemetery as well, the dead angels lie.
Exactly.
Yeah. I might request getting at least one Bane impression per interview.
Sometimes with metal albums, I really have to just like stop myself and be like, don't dig too far into this like combination of words. Like it sounds amazing, it sounds awesome. If you try to make sense of it, it's just gonna ruin the whole thing. So just let it be. Yeah, I think
Your
that might be.
your cover art is so fantastic. Do you like give the artist direction, or do you pick from an existing gallery, or just kind of let somebody hear the music and go?
So in the case of, do you mean like for Apocalyptic Rune or all of them?
Both. I mean,
Well, Apocalyptic Rune was our first where we actually worked with a different artist. And he was a Brazilian artist who I think the artwork was already he already had it. So we found it on Instagram and we were pretty like strapped for time when we were trying to get this all together. So we saw it and we're just like, perfect. Like, we'll send you
It
the money,
wasn't.
make the artwork. Before that, we were working with a local Madison artist whose medium was mostly collage, believe it or not. And with that one, we gave them some of our music, and we kind of just said, listen to this and draw some inspiration from it, and try to come up with something that you think really suits the music. So there was actually a very minimal amount of like direction that we gave to the artist for our first couple of albums. Which, looking back on things, I'm actually a little bit taken aback because I love that artwork, and I didn't have to I didn't have to critique it at all, or there was no like, oh, like I don't like this, or this needs to be done better. I just was like, yep, let's do it.
Yeah, are you talking about the ancient ruin artwork?
So there's the ancient rune artwork, there's Hell in the Sky artwork,
Yeah,
and
that too.
the cryptic rune artwork, and that was all done, by Josh. And he did almost all that artwork at the same time too. So we ended up purchasing like 3 or 4 different pieces of art that we were going to use for albums, and like just shirts and merch and stuff like that right away. So we got pretty lucky in that regard.
Yeah.
so what kind of draws you to the EP format, and may there ever be a full length on the horizon?
I would say yes. I mean, that would be personally my next goal, kind of, is to get a proper full length out. So that's my take. We're still kind of wrapping things up and getting ready for our next big show. So
Yeah, I think there's a lot of different reasons that we've kind of done EPs for the most part in our lifetime as a band. I think we take a long time to write music. Typically, it's a very it's a pretty drawn out process of like refining and really looking at it like objectively and trying to figure out like songs that work really really well for the band. And we're all we all work jobs, and have, like, some of us have families and different things going on. So I find a lot of times time is just very very limited. So I think have always gotten to a point where we're sort of like, okay, we really need to like record something now. We can't wait another 6 months or another year. I mean, during COVID, that was a little bit of obviously a very weird time where a lot of the same rules didn't really apply. But
it was interesting in that, like, I would just want to quick interject that it was interesting during COVID that, like, from a certain perspective, people who were really successful at music, selling out stadiums, were sort of in trouble. But I think it's like, in a lot of ways, it was almost more devastating to bands like us, where like time is so important and stuff like that. And
right, yeah, yeah.
And then getting, adjusting to going back to work. Yeah.
Well, we released Hell in the Sky in the spring of 2020. So that was like when all of the crazy shit was starting to happen. And the future was very like uncertain. So it really took us like 2 or 3 years after that to really get back into the stride of playing shows and writing music and actually becoming like gaining some popularity and some recognition just from playing around regionally. So I guess to answer your question, I mean, the EP thing has not really necessarily been a totally intentional thing. I think it's just something that happened because of the circumstances surrounding like us writing music and being a band at the various times. But nowadays, it's like I would really like to make a full length, but I am a little bit skeptical about, like it would be great to do it for myself, and I'm sure everyone in the band would love to do it, but like it seems like for a lot of people, they are more interested in like digesting like singles and shorter albums now. I mean, their attention span is just not what it really used to be. So, I mean, I mean, I'm motivated on a personal level, but sort of on a practical level, you know, I don't know if because like the thing about full length is like they are a huge endeavor. They take so much time, so much money, so much focus, and it really takes having a great vision for it. And I personally have had a few ideas, but I don't feel like I really have the vision for a full length just yet. But I am brainstorming. I do have some ideas that I think follow through is always it's always the struggle with being a musician or an artist or something like that. Like, it's like you're only gonna get out of it what you're willing to put in. And if you're only willing to put in like an EP's worth of material every 6 months or 6 months, then that's all you're really get out or put out. So yeah.
No, I get it. I mean, you almost have to be the level of like a blood incantation where you can say, "Oh, I'm going to make a full record and I'm confident that every song will get the proper attention." But how many bands get to that level, It's
Not many.
not many, yeah.
And like
Do
that
you know Tangerine Dream? Because if we
Mhm.
could get them on that album, that'd be dope.
Those guys are really old though.
I'll give him a call.
That's big.
Uh, what was I say? Yeah,
Uh,
so I lost my train of thought. Sorry.
it was weird. I didn't realize that when I would first listen to that album, and I'm like, why does this remind me of Risky Business? And then I was like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm done.
The Tangerine Dream thing. Yeah.
Yeah, that must have been like because I don't know the guys in Blood Incantation, but I do know that they are very very fond of like synth music and Tangerine Dream specifically. So I can imagine they must be just to the moon about being able to do that. So that's really sweet.
Yeah, that's another hot spot, Denver too, that we've noticed. Besides like Madison and
I'm
Austin,
gonna
yeah,
agree.
Denver for sure. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I love Wayfarer. I love Black
Wayfarer
Curse.
is really neat.
Storm
Black
Keep is
Curse is
amazing.
awesome. Yeah.
Spectral Voice is amazing. Um, I'm sure there's at least a handful of others, but
Oh yeah, yeah.
like,
Great
Catheter
tune.
was a really fun band back in the day. Grindcore band from Denver.
oh, Catheter, yep, that's true.
So if you could time travel back to 2020 when you were writing Hell in the Sky, what advice would you give to yourselves about songwriting or recording that you know now?
For me, it's really simple, and that is just write shorter songs. Like, that's what I would give myself because Hell in the Sky is two very long songs, and that's great, that's cool, but the reality is that if your songs are really long, then you know less people are going to listen to them, and B, most of the time when we play live, we're playing 30 minutes. So if we play those two long songs, that's like basically over half our set.
Yeah.
So, really like I think it works for some bands like Blood Incantation. It really works to have the longer songs. For us, I think we're better when we're doing like these really like tight, like very lean, catchy songs, which is like sort of what we did on Apocalyptic Rune. But we still need to trim a little bit here and there.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that oh shit, I already forgot. Never mind. Go on.
Well, one of the things about you guys, and we mentioned it in the review, is a lot of old school death metal. The solos are cool, but they're not memorable in a way, like,
Yeah.
but you guys write really memorable solos.
Thank you.
Is that like a long, it seems like you put a lot of effort into making sure like the harmonies and the solos have like a beginning, a middle, and an end, and you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, like as far as myself goes, the solos that I write, I try to write like a lot of hooks in the solos, and I mean, some of my favorite guitar players are like Annie LaRock from King Diamond, uh, the guitar player who names escape me now, but he played for like on Death, Spiritual Healing, James Murphy.
James Murphy, right? Okay.
And I mean, I've always been a huge Iron Maiden, the guitar duo of Iron Maiden and Judas Priest, and Tony Iommi, and I mean the list goes on and on. But I've always gravitated to more like melodic hook-based solos that are more memorable and not just shredding and or like in like crazy chaos
Yeah. No,
like
it comes
Slayer
through.
or Morbid
It
Angel.
really
Even
does.
though I love that stuff. I mean, that stuff all has a place, and I do a little bit of that in the album too. But yeah, I try to really refine it and kind of ask myself like, is this really working as sort of like a song within a song?
Yeah.
Yeah, we had a few track specific questions. For Dimensional Slaughter, is that a nod to the video game?
Well, Sam,
The what?
Is it a nod to the video game?
There's a video game called Dimensional Slaughter.
There is.
No shit.
Wow.
I came up with it.
what
Okay.
platform or system is it on?
I don't know. It's just when I was Googling and kind of doing some research, it popped up, and I'm like, I didn't know that was a video game.
Interesting. Yeah, I didn't either. That's
Oh,
I
dude,
gotta play it.
we've got a horror movie to be in or something.
Yeah,
I don't
there you
know.
go.
Find it
Yeah.
and like it's the haunted fucking. Yeah, no. And the best part is that like, to be completely honest, like it's something that like it in a way acknowledging that it was something I like. I feel like almost makes me self conscious, but like it was kind of from watching Rick and Morty. Like, if anything, just the way that he's always shooting the portals and they're jumping through them. That was like kind of where I got the idea, and it like just in the way too that like I like the earlier episodes of it, and that show just was like nothing but people arguing about that show eventually. So yeah, but like that was what planted the seed, and then just the idea too of it's like no, just like violence, but always on the most cosmic scale possible is like the lyrical process of it.
Yeah, I always thought it was a nod to kind of Lovecraftian cosmic horror.
Yeah.
It made me think of, did you see that 3-Body Problem
Oh,
series?
I did not, but I heard
I've not watched
it
it
good.
yet.
It's crazy. There's this scene where it's literally a invisible slaughter. I think you've watched it 4 times.
I can't stop watching it. It's
Yeah, I've read the book sort of in that it's like a really really dense book, and I listened to it on audiobook, so like as far as how much I retained, but like I got enough of the lore of it, and I've even watched some stuff people made about like stuff that happens in it. But yeah, definitely in the vein of that.
yeah, it's a trip.
Thanks for mentioning that, actually, because I really want to see that show.
When you
Yeah.
say invisible slaughter, like what do you mean?
They have this weapon that it's like
Don't spoil it.
yeah,
Just
Okay,
micro.
okay. I'll-
Is it the
I'll-
Trisolarians?
Well, I was thinking like,
Micros-
did you see the remake of Suspiria?
Ooh, I fucking
All right. Well,
love that.
I shouldn't spoil it either. It's a good one if you like if you're into like horror movies and that kind of stuff.
yeah, let's
Oh,
look
yeah,
at it
yeah.
this way. It's this invisible thing that will shred
microscopic steel cables used as a weapon. So just think about that,
that you really can't see.
that can cut through anything. And it's just like, so when you
Okay.
get to that part of the show, it's just, yeah. Like I
Yeah.
said, I've rewatched it,
I'm intrigued. Yeah, I'm
over and over
intrigued
again.
now.
Yeah.
Here's
Well,
anything like it. Yeah.
I think the best thing that like a spoiler free endorsement about the book or the series is that the third book in it is called Death's End. And that sounds so basic, but like I know enough about the series that it's like it actually is like those
Wow.
two words show just how crazy like the shit in that gets. Like
Yeah. That is Lovecraftian. Yeah. Yeah.
mm.
Yeah.
I love the lyrics and death will become you about believing the lies of a heaven untrue, embrace the end and let death become you now. You know, there's some existential weight to the lyrics. Do you think that people who report these near death experiences are they, you know, biological, spiritual, or just something made up?
um I I guess, you know, right away I would say that I come from a pretty agnostic point of view, but like my old take on that would be that like I don't know, maybe it is just like chemicals happening that like we experience, and maybe that's all it is, but maybe that's cosmically awesome and great. Or you know, like I mean, if there's kind of anything to see, like the last hurrah of your brain going out, you know, I think that's just as beautiful as any other kind of deal.
Like a built-in comfort thing. Oh, there's a light, and then then
Yeah, yeah. Well, or
Exactly.
the end of Space Odyssey 2001. You get to have that, and like
Right.
you know.
I guess what I would offer to that question is that, I mean, what we perceive as reality is all just information that our senses are taking into it. And I think that once we, I mean, I've never had a near death experience myself, but I would imagine that when you have that, your perception kind of mutates and morphs, and there's probably spaces where your perception is like halfway between what it's used to and something new that it can't even really make any sense of. So if you return from that, it's almost like when you wake up from a dream, like a really crazy dream, and like you're kind of like you remember bits and pieces of it, and you feel it intensely. But then when you go to someone and try to explain to them it, you're just like at a loss for words. Like you can't say like what you can't like write it down or like tell it like a story.
Yeah. And what could motivate you more to change negative aspects of your life than a near-death experience? You know what I mean? Like
Right.
that's how many people's, compasses have been realigned because of something like that. I mean, not that it's a
Absolutely.
great thing to happen, but in some cases the overall effect can be.
Definitely changes your relationship to existence for sure,
Mm,
and
Yeah, and
reality in general.
yeah.
yeah, and I would definitely want to take the opportunity to say only death is real. So
Yeah, there you go. It's pretty heavy,
So for the Rhinonauts, now when I'm Googling this, it comes up with Beast Wars Transformers. Is did it come from there?
Rhinox. Oh shit!
It
I
it
didn't even think of that, but yeah.
it didn't, but I did watch that show a lot when I was a
Hell yeah.
kid. So I mean, I think it might have been just like one of those things that was in my kind of in my imagination. Um, and when I because I came up with that name, and I just was like I really like rhinoceroses, and but like what if it was like also like the stone, like the onyx, like it was like a rhinoceros made out of onyx. And I actually just came up with the name, and then Sam wrote the rest of the lyrics. Um, but
Yeah.
that's kind of a common thing that happens to me, whereas like I'll think about something just sort of like in my daily life, and I'll just be like, and then all of a sudden, like, my it triggers my imagination and makes me get really excited, and then I want to like write music about it, or I want to like write, like create expressive imagery. But I know exactly what you're talking about though in Beast Wars, and
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's a
Yeah.
cool connection.
Yeah, I watched that show too. Like that was one of those rerun right after school shows that like I got that it didn't have cable. So yeah, that's good to remember. And I do remember that Dave named it that, and he titled sort of the file that we had of the riffs to practice off of Rhinonics is how we say it. I mean, to say there's a right way to I don't know. But yeah, and I mean I almost was like, I don't want to say I took it as a challenge, but I got the impression maybe that was kind of a scratch name, and like I do that all the time with everything I write, and like generally have problems finishing things. So just the title of like, I think to this day, the fact that I titled a file in Fruity Loops Satanima Canal one time, like that probably like that's what I'll call things. Like
That's a good one. Yeah.
I like my portmanteaus, I think it is. Yeah.
A lot of times we write music, like we'll jam riffs and we'll kind of like we'll write the songs, but the lyrics usually always come after the music is written. And so just to like as a reference, like we have to come up with something to, beyond like song one, song two, or so a lot of times like I found that if I can come up with like an animal to associate it with a song, it works really well because like one, I just love animals and it's cool to say their names, like, crocodile, alligator, Komodo dragon, but also like it kind of reminds you of like, oh, is this song like super aggressive or super fast, or is it more like slow and crushing? And I think with the Rhinonics are however you can say whatever you want to. We still haven't figured it out yet.
Yeah.
And it's like really sort of slow and mid-paced and kind of just has a very like caveman-y riff to it. And I just like I remember when I wrote it, I was like, kind of sounds like a rhino just trotting really slowly, but just like really mean. You know what I mean?
Large and in charge.
Yeah.
Well, we play a game on the show. It's called Blaspheming Monikers. Okay. So the way the game works is I have several band names in front of me from the Metal Archives. One of them is made up. So I want you guys to listen to this list and
All
then
right.
take turns trying to figure out which one is not a real band. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So we have Horny Speed, Speed Violation, Speed Fox with two X's, and Speed Science and Belushi Speedball. So which one of them to you sounds fake?
I know Belushi Speedball is a real band.
Yeah.
I can't wait to hear them. I haven't heard them yet, but I think that's the best name ever. Anyway.
They have to be a grindcore band.
Is
Like,
it
if they're not a grindcore band, I want my money back.
is it a Horny Speed? The first
Horny
one?
Speed, Speed Violation, Speed Fox, and Speed Science.
Is Speed Science the fake one?
Speed Science is real. They're thrash from France. They have two EPs and one full length.
Yeah, no. The weird proggy thrash stuff, it checks out, right?
So the problem is like all these band names sound like they could be like a Japanese thrash metal band to me. Like that kind of like
Yeah.
that like weird. And then Speed Fox just sounds like it could be like an LA Sunset Strip throwback band. So yeah, that's a tough one.
I think Horny Speed, but there should be a band called that.
Horny Speed are real. They're from Germany, which I was not surprised to see.
Is Speed
They're-
Violation the fake one?
No, Speed Violation is from Japan. They're power metal and they have one full length. No, Speed Fox is the one made up actually.
Oh man. Well, there also needs to be
Speed Fox, I
Dave.
could just see the back patch of that, with the two X's.
Right.
Like a Swedish band, like that's trying to play like 80s LA stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The
That was
Speed
a
Fox.
good one.
Actually, I've completely bastardized my chat GBT. Like it drops F-bombs and everything. Like I've completely warped it, right?
You've corrupted it.
Yeah, before this interview, I always run my blaspheming monikers through chat GBT to see if he can get it. He wrote the entire biography of Speed Fox, like this fake biography. He said that their band song was "My Fox, Your Pussy."
Oh,
They're a band in the UK, and yeah, I mean, it's
see,
just
like I live for shit like that. I am always like, yeah, like I always just think of band names, or like if I hear things, like, in the way that I can create mythologies out of anything, I feel like. And like,
yeah,
I love, you could almost say it's like a songwriting hack, but it's just like sometimes you say the series of words,
yeah,
and it's like, to me sometimes too, it's like, oh, that's a whole album right there.
yeah.
Like, that is a concept album in and of itself with those
Yeah.
words. So
He said that "My Fox, Your Pussy" has been covered by
Oh my
Sodom,
God.
Gravedigger, and weirdly Debbie Gibson. And
mhm.
yeah, and my like Stace will come in and go, "Do I need to leave you two alone, you and Chat GPT? Because it's getting kind of weird in here."
I'm of a specific generation that Debbie Gibson will always just remind me of Johnny Depp in Fear and Loathing in Las
Oh
Vegas,
yeah,
being like,
yeah, yeah,
Debbie Gibson sounds like a hot ticket.
yeah.
Like,
I remember that. Yeah. Mm,
So
mm.
I love your guitar work with all the solos and harmonies. What for you was the hardest skill to learn or master?
I think for me it was playing and screaming at the same time. On that level too, because I think, I mean, what I love about this band is I think I never have a hard time finding places I feel like I can like push myself. And in the way too that sometimes I know that like when we get together and make our songs, like it's gonna end up being usually refined because it tends to be collaborative. But yeah.
I also really like the cadaveric autolus, which is when the body like eats itself, and it
At
instantly. Have you
cadaveric
noticed?
autolysis. Oh god, yeah, another
Yeah.
one honestly that like, I mean, and I've noticed though, when you have confusing things like that, some like people, it'll get people talking, or it'll get people confused, and they'll be noticed. Like, I think some people can be like, no, there's a spelling error, and I'm just like, hey, there's a spelling error. Like, keep it there. Like.
It immediately made me. Have you ever heard of these things called body farms?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. I stumbled across a video that
Isn't
was
there a
about
band called Body Farm from Madison, Sam?
what?
Wasn't there a band called Body Farm
There
from
is.
Madison?
There's a band called Body Form. Did we interview them?
No, we reviewed them.
We reviewed them. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you think you'd be willing to donate your body, to help out with the body farm once you're
Oh
gone?
yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Um I as the only thing I've actually thought about in terms of like what I'd want done with my body, but like I've recently got really into growing plants, and like part of my goals is to like find the tree that could potentially be like planted on my grave now.
Okay.
And so yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah.
So you'll be hitting the Milwaukee Metal Fest, which is just going to be absolutely huge.
Yeah.
What might a set list look like, and can fans expect any surprises there?
Well, we have a fairly short set, as you probably guessed. I think it's only about 20 minutes. So I think we'll probably try to play like at least 3 or 4 off of Apocalyptic Ruin, like some like the songs that we've gotten like really good reception with. Like definitely we'll probably play Bestial Regression for sure. Like out of all the songs, the most people have told me that like that's their favorite Rune Dwellers song. We might play something new, but at this point I can't say for sure or not, just because it is only about a couple months away and we do tend to work fairly slow. So I mean,
Yeah.
I think that especially in a kind of a high pressure situation like that, I'd rather play something that I know we can just like totally pull off and just rock it, as opposed to playing something that like, we're kind of like experimenting with, if that makes sense.
No, yeah.
Um, but yeah, I think definitely I'm gonna try to lean more towards the shorter songs personally when I make the set list. Because kind of what I was talking about earlier.
Would you ever go the
Yeah.
corner way of taking a song and doing a cover, or what do you think might be a good cover song for you to Rune Dweller up?
I have a vision for us covering Monolith by Amoebics, but like the intro track into Nobody's Driving, because like that whole chunk right there is cool. Which is very long, but I don't know. I'm the one who kind of brings that to the band sometimes, and like I'm not set on. I like having like ripper songs for sure. Like I think I like the mixture of stuff, and I don't like a song being long just for the sake of it. Like it's got to like it's got to bleed at the right pace, if that makes any sense.
I could see you guys doing like a, I don't know, like a Gorguts something.
That
Mhm.
would be
Mr. Luc
really
Lemay,
cool. Yeah,
Jean-Luc
that's
Lemay.
some like
Well,
Remains
yeah,
of
and I mean,
Insanity or Considered Dead. Those are two of
Yeah.
all-time favorite death metal albums.
Yeah, that would fit your style, I think, and with the meticulous soloing and all that stuff. Yeah.
yeah, and I
I
mean,
mean, my favorite is Colored Sands, just 'cause I think it was just
yeah. I mean, it's
it's
hard to
off the
hard to beat.
charts.
Yeah, it's hard to beat John Longstreth on drums and like the guys from. Well, I know the bass player was from Dysrhythmia and like Krallis, and I think the guitar
Yeah.
player was also from Dysrhythmia. So yeah, that was a really really amazing comeback album, I thought.
And it's like it's almost like Hare Krishna metal, like
Yeah,
like the lyrics, like you would
right,
never
yeah,
think that would
right.
work, but it's amazing. Yeah, yeah,
I mean, it's like leave it to Luc Lemay to do something like that and just totally kill it.
yeah,
It's like if anyone could do it, it would be him.
yeah.
I've always daydreamed about like because like one of my favorite like whenever I think about covers, I think about like how can I take a song that isn't necessarily like a metal song and make it like a death metal song or a black metal song or something like that. And one of my favorite bands is Blue Oyster Cult.
Okay,
And
yeah.
so like I kicked around the idea of maybe doing like Veterans of a Psychic War.
oh, have
Like
we talked about that?
we probably did at some point.
I hope we have, because like when I was at Metal Fest 2 years back, I remember that song got played a bunch in between in between sets, and like I feel like I had the thought of us doing that, but
yeah,
it's meant to be. We should do it.
yeah, we should. And then I had a really weird idea not too long ago of doing Godzilla, but kind of if you can imagine like a D-beat death metal version of Godzilla, like almost
Hell
like
yeah.
something like what Coffins would do.
Yeah.
So I know it's hard to picture, but like I was actually messing around with the riff on guitar, and I was actually like, you know what would sound good with this riff? A really slow D beat.
Yeah,
Yeah. So
absolutely. I'm already thinking of that in my head. Like, I feel like, yeah, and I even like the idea of it, like the coffins thing, and like, I'm envisioning it as like, because like Japan, it's like Godzilla is like attacking, and you can hit. It's gonna be like slowed down, but then it's also gonna be fast forwarded here and there. Like,
yeah,
it'll.
put that on the list.
Yeah.
We've done a lot of Sabbath covers. Like we covered Snowblind for a couple shows we did last year.
That was super
That,
fun.
that worked out really well too because like it was cool because like a really good friend of mine, he came and played guitar, and Sam just did vocals, and so he kind of did the Ozzy vocals, but in his style, and he kind of was free to run around the stage and just go crazy. So that actually worked really well. I mean, it's not too surprising that Sabbath songs just covered in any metal style sound really really amazing.
But the key to Snowblind is you got to get the drums right because the drums are really tricky in that song. You know
That
what I mean?
is true, yeah.
They're not done right. It's just it's a turn off. So
Oh,
yeah.
our
You should
second
check
night.
it. There's a video on YouTube of us playing. Check it out and let us know if we did it
Hmm.
right. I think we did, but
I'll check it
No,
out.
no,
Yeah.
that
yeah.
one. That's actually the performance I was gonna mention, and it's like we actually did it right, but like the plan, the dynamic we even went for, I think we had kind of been like, it's like if it falls apart, just like come back to it. But like, I
That's
think
the
it
right
just
way
for
to
all
be.
of us, probably it felt like there's too much space. And like,
Yeah.
I was almost just like, oh, we're going to ruin it. But then like right away, we just go back into it. And like,
Yeah.
so even we were kind of
Yeah.
surprised, but yeah.
Yeah, I
So
mean,
like,
you were talking about Blue Oyster Cult. I've read books about Blue Oyster Cult. The makings of their albums, it almost sounds like they're making shit up because it's like
Yeah.
there were poets, and then Patti Smith came in,
Yep. Yep.
and and we're talking about what the joke used to be. Well, Maiden's got 2 guitar players. Molly Hatchet's got 3. Who's got the most? Blue Oyster Cult, all of them,
Right.
all of them.
Well, 'cause they had that
It's just
song
like
where everybody plays the guitar. And sings
fascinating
out. I
band.
mean,
It's fascinating.
that's
And then like Buck Dahmer, he gives the worst interviews because you'll ask him about some classic song and he'll go, "I was just trying to play like Jerry Garcia," and I'm like, "Oh, fuck off." We don't even worry.
yeah, no, for real. I'm totally with you. Where it's sort of like it's like you wrote these crazy like kind of like experimental rock songs where you had all these wild lyrics and like this like almost like horror supernatural, but then you also wrote like really straight ahead rock songs and stuff and just like they're almost like the greatest rock band that is a heavy metal band but is not a heavy metal band.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Buck Dharma, he wanted to be a roadie for the Grateful Dead, and he brings it up in every interview.
it's
And
so
I'm
weird.
just like,
I've
how is
not
that
heard that.
possible? Yeah.
Yeah,
But
it's like you could do that now.
yeah. I still think it's really funny, and I don't know. People don't seem to think either, but like I just think it's great to come up with the idea of like that you could like major in Blue Oyster Cultural Studies. Like,
that's a good thought because you could.
yeah,
There's enough for a college class there.
It's
Absolutely.
not so many albums.
Oh
yeah.
yeah.
So if you could draft a guitarist, living or dead, to join Rune Dweller for one epic track, who would you pick and why?
Damn, I wish I was cool enough to be able to say his name right off the bat, but it's the dude who was in the guitarist from Nitro, who was in the horror movie, who
Oh,
had the four guitar thing.
Angelo Badio.
Yeah, yeah. I want him just for that.
The
Either,
Nitro guy. Wow.
yeah, either him or what is his name? There's this guy named Tanaka Mayoyoshi from Japan who's like he's kind of like Santana, I guess. Like they've performed together, but like he has a surfboard guitar.
Oh yeah, I know. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
It's extremely impractical because it's like a whole surfboard with the guitar in it. And when interviewed, he's like, it's very heavy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, my first instinct was to say if I could get either, and I don't know if they've had the same lead guitar player for their whole career or not, but like, so whoever played lead guitar on Entombed's Left Hand Path, I think would be amazing to do a feature on a Rune Dweller song, and then I don't know. Are you familiar at all with the Dismember album? I think it's like their second or third one called like Pieces or
I
something
don't know.
something like
Pieces, I don't know. I know Clandestine, Left Hand Path,
So I'm actually talking about
Blues.
Dismember now, not Into.
Oh,
Yeah, I think
Dismember. Yeah, Dismember. Okay. Yeah,
I
okay,
think I
Dismember.
might
I know
even
what you're talking about now.
distinctly remember seeing a picture disc of that album because it has like a picture of the band on it, right?
Oh, okay. So it was
It's
called
confusing because
Indecent.
Nick from Entombed designed the logo for Dismember, so
Right.
it's very easy to get confused.
Yeah, because and I think that a lot of the members were in Nihilist before, because like Nihilist kind of branched out into like 3 different bands. It was like Unleashed, Dismembered, and Entombed. Um,
Right.
but okay, so there's an album called Indecent and Obscene from
Yeah.
'93, and there's this track called Dreaming in Red, which just has this like amazing, like soulful, slow, like not shreddy guitar solo that like I just listen. I remember when I discovered it, I just listened to it like over and over and over again, and like I could just see that being amazing for like a Rune Dweller.
I have to go back and listen because I know the album you're talking about. It's got the chest cut,
Yeah,
the cut
yep,
in the chest.
exactly.
Yeah,
Yep.
I have that
Yeah.
upstairs. Yeah, I have to go. What song is it?
Dreaming in Red. It's
All
like
right,
it's
I have
like
to listen for that.
it kind of like slower. It's very instrumental. You know, it's not super like aggressive sounding. It's just
Yeah,
like
yeah,
kind of moody and melodic, like a lot of
very
the
cool.
Swedish death metal bands do. They always sneak in those like very somber melodies.
Yeah,
I just go crazy for that shit.
yeah. Yeah.
So you guys have taken us through ancient and apocalyptic ruins. What's the next chapter for Ruin Dweller? Would it be a new concept, a different direction, or just more destruction?
I think like what we've sort of talked about. Me and Sam have talked about this a little bit, and I've talked about this with the rest of the band too. But I mean, I would really like to develop the kind of the post-apocalyptic narrative theme that we have kind of touched upon lightly in like our albums, but I really want to get it to be more clear and maybe a little bit more like of like an aesthetical theme, you know, so a little bit more focused, more lyrically focused on, you know, yeah, dystopian, post-apocalyptic kind of stuff like that. I've had some ideas of like, you know, either a concept album, which is like a story throughout the whole album, which I really don't think is going to happen because I just don't think we're really that kind
You
of
can't do an EP that way.
right. But you know, I thought it'd be a really cool idea to like. I've always loved bands that wrote about like movies and books specifically, and I always thought it'd be really cool to have like an entire album where like every song is based on like a different dystopian or post-apocalyptic movie or story, like something that, you know, I wouldn't want it to be like too on the nose, but hopefully
Right, right.
something familiar enough that like if you're into that kind of stuff, you're like, oh, like because I mean,
Right.
the first thing that came to mind for me was like Mad Max, you
I
know,
was exactly going to say
like
you can't call the
doing
Yeah.
song Mad
and,
Max.
and,
I was
and for
just going
some
to
reason,
nail
I could just hear Rune Dweller to Mad Max, like the kind of the chains and spikes and armor and like cars and you know stuff like that.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I think yeah, like I feel like Ruin Dweller is definitely like I don't know, like I was just thinking of a really good metaphor between like the Mad Max thing and like I guess like there's a lot of anime that is inspired by Mad Max and yeah, it's like
well,
I think
Vampire
that
Hunter D,
like there's like the
like
Hunger Games,
yeah.
right? That's like dystopian stuff and like for us it's like our stuff would be more like instead of the young adult novel apocalypse it's like the adult anime apocalypse where people's heads explode and shit.
Well, you told me to check out Vampire Hunter D Bloodlust,
Yeah,
and I watched that movie. And after I watched that movie, I was just like, you know what? Like, this is like perfect for
yeah,
writing like a Ruin Dweller song or like some getting some Ruin Dweller lyric inspiration because it just like, yeah, it has all the cool shit.
yeah. I want to write a song about the character named Bengi who swims through shadows and stabs people like in the head of their shadow and then they actually die.
I think you already did. It's called Dimensional Slaughter.
It's not not enough shadows in
That's
that.
not enough slaughter, not enough dimensions.
There's more cosmology.
Yeah.
my memory of Mad Max is when I was about 13 years old, my parents caught me and my brother watching Mad Max, and we had stolen my father's Canadian Mist, and we were drinking it.
Ooh.
And she confiscated the tape. This was the Mel Gibson Mad Max. She confiscated it, which, by the way, to me was God when I
Yeah.
was a kid. I know the new one's really cool, but I grew up watching the Mad Max with Mel Gibson. It was just like
It's definitely different animals
it's
altogether.
so
Yeah.
gritty. You know, it was really. non-commercial. We'd never seen anything like that.
It's great till they brought in Tina Turner.
She ruined the whole thing, of course, yes. But before that, the first two are fantastic. Yeah. So
But
I
I
like
think
whole
so.
idea.
Master Blaster's pretty cool.
the whole idea of fuel of gasoline being the currency just was so awesome, like
Yeah.
Well, that's the crazy thing about the first Mad Max movie is like they're just like when the movie starts and for like the first 40 minutes they're just going about their business basically. Like it's like
Yeah.
there's like these cops and there's like people, and then it takes a long time before you realize like actually what is happening like in the world.
Yeah. Yeah, the first Alien movie's like that too. Like the
Right,
first
yeah.
30 minutes or so, it's kind of slow, build. Yeah.
Which I think is
You want to fall
is
asleep to some
awesome.
text that'll show up eventually. Like,
Yeah.
You guys could always go the route. It seems very popular now. You write a soundtrack for this movie that doesn't exist,
Yeah.
but
oh,
just in your head.
Like the Uncle Acid and the Deadbeats. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. I actually have a solo project that I've been doing in one form or another for probably at least 15 years at this point, called Red Museum, named after my favorite episode of The X-Files. But that was very much so always like, I want to write soundtracks to things that don't exist.
Yeah.
If you know the band, I don't know the band that well, but they're called Bloody Hammers, and this guy Anders Magos from it. I don't know how you say his last name, but it's something like that. He has a solo thing called Terrortron that like his latest, the last one I heard was called Orgy of the Vampires, and it really is like in the best way, cut and paste sort of like 70s horror aesthetic with a lot more synth and using
Yeah.
modern stuff. But like,
Oh yeah, I love all that shit. Yeah.
I vibe with that, and like especially like the Akira soundtrack and the Ghost in the Shell soundtrack, those two like really haunting, creepy, atmospheric ones. That influences the metal I make for sure. Like,
Yeah, I'm a big Ennio Morricone junkie,
oh,
and I've only
yeah.
got about
That man can make
196 more records to listen to, at this point.
yeah. Well, and
A lot.
yeah, it's like a lot of shit too, where like you listen to, I found I need to be a little specific about the kind of playlist of his work,
Yeah.
because like a lot of people, like I was listening to Claudio Simonetti earlier too, and it's like, if you go real random, like you're going to get some like weird stuff that was like love themes that don't even work ironically, like,
Yeah.
and like
Or like a 10-minute song of female orgasms. Yeah. With no
something
music.
like
Yeah.
that.
That's a
Yeah.
real thing.
Yeah. So I think we should end it with that. A 10-minute song of female orgasms. We could even call the episode that, so.
Well, hopefully we'll lure you over to Baltimore at some point.
Yeah, I would absolutely love to be there.
It'd be great.
We do really want to like, especially with the new release out, we really want to tour more and kind of do some regional stuff. But it's just so difficult to conceptualize something like that. I mean, none of us are particularly young anymore, and got to work and
Yeah.
do that
Maybe
kind
for
of
Maryland,
stuff.
that's best.
Yeah.
Well, that would be a reason to come to Baltimore for sure.
Yeah.
I
Absolutely.
mean, like if that
We never
happens,
miss it.
definitely touring the East Coast, because I love the East Coast too. Like I mean, like playing in like Philadelphia or New York or Boston, or I don't know, people playing like Providence or like Portland or Maine. I mean, I'm sure they do, but like that I think that would all be really, really cool. So
Yeah.
I wish there wasn't so much like kind of distance between Wisconsin and there.
Although we keep having to say we're gonna have to get to Madison one of these days.
Yeah, we'd like to go to Milwaukee Metal Festival.
Yeah.
We've never been to that. So, yeah.
It's a really, really, really good time. I played the first year with a different band, and I attended last year just as an audience member. And I've been to a lot of music festivals, and like this one is like really, really cool because it's like it's all in one building, and all the stages are really close together, so you can kind of just like pop around, like you can watch half a dying fetus and then go watch like, Terrorizer, and like you don't really have to be like, because like you've been to Maryland Death Fest, right?
Yeah.
So
Oh,
like
yeah.
like I don't know if they still do this, but you know how like the Ram's Head is like so far away
It is.
from like the lot,
It's a lot of walking.
And
Yeah.
stuff
Like,
tends to go on at the same time.
So you kind of
Right.
have to
have
pick.
to map out what you want to see.
Right. So you say, do I want to see cryptopsy, or do I want to see, blood incantation? You have
You
to
have to
pick.
make these choices, right?
Yeah.
And you kind of have to be like, well, what bands do I like better? And sometimes you don't make the right choice. Sometimes you look back at it and you're like, I really wish I'd seen this band
Right.
instead of watched this band I thought I enjoy more. And at Milwaukee Metal Fest, you really that there isn't as much consequence to a choice. Like you can watch a song and then be like, I'm not feeling this. Like I'm gonna go watch the band. Something.
Well, I feel like in Milwaukee they've probably got the zoning planned a little better. I've been going to Maryland Death Fest for years, and the bars and clubs that host this kind of music are constantly open and then going out of business, open and going out of business, and that contributes, I think, to the fragmentation of it. Because back in the early 2000s, you could buy a ticket and you could just everything was really close together, like you're describing. But again, it's Baltimore, and there's a lot of like seedy stuff going on. A lot of places close, and then you're in a parking lot watching some of the band. You know what I mean? So it's just a lot of it has to do with just the nature of Murder City.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you're totally right.
It just gets worse and worse.
It's actually it is crazy that like the biggest metal fest. I mean, I would think it's probably the biggest death metal underground metal fest.
It is. I think it is. Yeah.
Like,
I think it's funny. Like when you talk to people who say, "Well, it's kind of a rough neighborhood," all I have to say is, "Dude, I'm from Baltimore," and they're like, "Oh, then you're fine." Then, I go to work in a place that's like downtown Beirut every day. I mean, come on.
Right.
So.
Yeah, no, it's like Mad Max, right?
Pretty much. Yeah.
Well, there's no guy with a mohawk throwing a boomerang at me, but it's close.
The sounds of decay!
Okay, Sounds of Decay 1 is the new album from Whitechapel, Hymns in Dissonance.
For almost 20 years, Whitechapel has been busting up breakdowns, assaulting ears with blast beats, raging riffs, and tremolo-picked chaos, screaming the red off a brick wall. With this, their 9th full length, any fans concerned the band has moved away from their deathcore roots can pour themselves a big steaming mug of Shut the Fuck Up. Hymns in Dissonance is steeped in pure deathcore malevolence. So vile, you'll feel the fires of hell licking your ears and get a snoot full of brimstone.
This album tells the story of a depraved cultist gathering followers to join his minions. And no, not the yellow guys from Despicable Me. The 10 tracks, mostly in the 4 to 6 minute range, serve as hymns. Tracks 1 and 2 act as an incantation-laden introduction, opening interdimensional portals, while tracks 3 through 10 each represent an ode to one of the 7 deadly sins.
Prisoner 666 kicks off the Inferno with an ominous restraint, a lone guitar warbling out repeated low notes as a wispy, discordant synth line creeps in like a darkening sky. Brandon Zacky's blast beats hit like a sudden deluge, while a second guitar awakens with unsettled chords, drifting independently of the original melody. Gabe Crisp's bass is so full of vibrato, your teeth will ache. Then, all drops out for Phil Bozeman's initial vitrolic, multi-layered scream. Just when you think it couldn't get more vicious, it plunges a fiendish octave deeper. His vocals layer up like legion, sifting from throaty barks to gluttural gurgles. The drums sync with the vocals in the chorus, adding a punishing punch to every 666. I bear the number 666, enshrouded by the eternal eclipse. The unholy metamorphosis is a lasting change. The fear-struck gods are forced to worship thy name. Let's play a clip. This is Prisoner 666.
I
Okay, continuing on with the song you just heard, naturally there's a white hot solo from the appropriately named Ben Savage, flanked by rolling drums. Near the end, I thought Bozeman had shifted into a foreign language until the lyrics popped up on Spotify, and I realized it was backward English. And as anyone who's played the White Album backwards knows, that's the language of demons and cryptic messages. The only sin I can definitely tie to a specific song is sloth, which I'm guessing is represented by diabolic slumber. Can one be wickedly lazy? Thinking of certain wealthy people I know who are obsessed with making others do their bidding, yeah, I can see it. The echoing guitar spins out thin, unhinged notes while Zacky's drumming veers between doom plods and impossible jiffy pop blasts. I now understand why the drummer is always the rotating position in this band. They must wear them out. Bozeman shifts between diabolic screeches and a distorted incubus-like growl. Savage and Alex Wade float eerie harmonies over the chaotic layers. A haunting interlude of drawn-out riffs and low-end hum sets up the final chorus for one last bone-crushing impact.
Meanwhile, Hate Cult Ritual delivers an ominous chant that feels like an invocation. We hunt, we kill, we feast, we conquer. We are disciples of hate, rage, and murder. The track ramps up fast, with blast beats viciously pummeling through most of the runtime. Savage shreds brief but blistering solos over the infernal racket. The final chant, not exactly family picnic fodder, mock, burn, spit on the cross.
Yeah.
My favorite track, The Abysmal Gospel, because who doesn't love a reading from the Book of Abysmal? It kicks off with Savage and Wade's super fuzz, down-tuned tandem guitars detonating over a single kick drum strike. Crisp bass tone bounces low enough to kick you in the ass. Blast beats smash through the back door as guitar notes scatter like frightened birds. A doom speed pause sets up a bat out of hell return. Bozeman's scream sounds soaked in battery acid before he drops into a guttural abyss. A synchronized scream and blast beat hit over like a demolition charge. Prime wall of death fuel. The final passage layers light harmonies over chaos, creating a perfect culmination of delightful horribleness.
Guitarist Alex Wade summed it up. We attempted to write our heaviest album to date. We wanted to put out something that was shockingly menacing and brutal. Mission accomplished. With hymns in dissonance, Whitechapel doesn't just return to their deathcore roots, they carve them in stone and set them on fire and scream into the abyss while they burn. Shockingly menacing, brutal, and hell yeah, this one slays. Let's play The Abysmal Gospel. Okay, Sounds of Decay 2.
This is Sacrifice with Volume 6. Sacrifice, a moniker synonymous with quality and dedication to the genre. They never tried to write big sports anthems, jump on the new metal bandwagon, or collaborate with hip-hop artists. They play thrash metal, and they do it very, very well.
Sure, as a young pizza thrasher, I was a little sad when I heard the tightened technical edge of 87's Forward Determination. Fan as I was of their feral, somewhat wonky debut, Torment and Fire, an album I still love to this day with its over-the-top whammy dive bombs and evil voiceovers like a low-rent Possessed. I got over it quick, though, as the band simply crushed it with one quality album after another. Even during Thrash's wilderness years, they delivered the goods on 93's Apocalypse Inside, in a year when grunge and rap were slowly killing off our metal heroes.
After a wise hiatus, Sacrifice knocked it out of the park again with a fantastic reunion album, The Ones I Condemn, finally getting the chance to tour Europe and Japan properly. And now they've dropped yet another ripper, Volume 6. Let's play a song. This is Comatose.
We gave a need, the needle bleeds. You can't deny, you must complain. You fell down
Okay, the band is just reaping the rewards of consistency at this point. Urban Addy's evil rasp sounds as glorious as ever, garnishing the iron gallop of the opener you just heard with the perfect refrain of comatose before the band uncorks top-notch harmonized leads with second guitarist Joe Rico. These Canucks must have been reading my mind because they drop a bunch of Torment in Fire style whammy bar dives over a stellar lurching bass line to kick off Underneath Millennia. The track eventually stutter stepping into a glorious Morse code riff to close it out.
Finally, there's the instrumental, Black Hashish, a curveball that sneaks in a female vocal, some airy Eastern clean guitar melodies, and fretboard gymnastics from Rico and Urbanati that have even the oldest fans tapping their white high tops in ecstasy. Let's close with a question, because why not? In terms of consistency, validity, back catalog, did the Canadian Big Four, Sacrifice, Voivod, Razor, Annihilator, outclass the American Big Four? Talk amongst yourselves. This is Hunger for War.
Okay, Sounds of Decay 3 is a new album from Teitanblood from the Visceral Abyss. Teitanblood, the legendary skull-bruising four-piece from Madrid, are back with their fourth full-length from the Visceral Abyss. And considering the incredible brutality of their music and a career spanning over 2 decades, I couldn't help but wonder, what does it take for 4 guys to stay this angry, this full of savage, Christ-trouncing vengeance for so long? Were they forced to watch Jesus Christ Superstar, Clockwork Orange style multiple times? Maybe they were sons of tyrannical ministers like the dude in Footloose, never allowed to kick off their Sunday shoes, perhaps? Or were they stuck working in a warehouse with one broken radio playing the Amy Grant station all day long on a shitty speaker? Then again, it could have just been one too many Salvation Army Santas ringing that goddamn bell.
Whatever the reason, we can be grateful as vitriol levels in the Teitanblood camp are as high as ever. From the Visceral Abyss consists of 7 songs, most of which dwell in the 5 to 7 minute range, packed with chainsaw riffs, brain-searing blast beats, demonic guttural vocals, and string-mangling leads. For the uninitiated, poor bastards, starting with the opener, enter the Hypogeum. A hypogeum is an underground tomb, by the way. One need wait for about 40 seconds of echoey intro before a hard pan blast of guitar and a fit of Sandoval-adjacent drumming leads way to a full-scale Storm the Gates eruption around 1 minute 20 seconds. Bass vocalist Ignacio Munez uncorking an ungodly wall as the sounds of hell are truly realized. Let's play a clip. This is Enter the Hypogeum.
Drummer Jay once again brings his A game. J game, possibly? Smashing his snare and bass drums into a putty-like substance with perfect balance of precision and punishment. Strangling Visions kicks off with a couple of doomy downstrokes before blasting into hyperdrive once again. The juxtaposition of Jay's battering percussion and Munoz's Satan-summoning roar sounding gloriously fiendish.
The album's real curiosity is the 14-plus minute epic, Tomb Corpse Harpux.
It's Haruspex.
Haruspex?
Yeah.
The album's real curiosity is the 14-plus minute epic, Tomb Corpse Haruspex, a welcome return to the 10-minute-plus Teitanblood epics of old. Subsonic riffing slowly fades into focus, percussion building tension at a mid-paced tempo. About 4 minutes in, we're locked at full speed, Munoz somehow executing syncopation with Jay's wild rolls here and there. Around the track's midpoint, the band returns to a slower pace that really allows Jay to stretch out and show his dizzying snare and double bass acumen over squalling reverb-soaked guitars. The last couple of minutes introduce some eerie Well of Soul style synth drama that eventually takes center stage, chiming away as it drops us off in some echoey sarcophagus for the night.
Whatever the source of the band's demons, they have channeled it into a deadly sound. Fans of stuff like Portal, Archgoat, and early Morbid Angel need to get a taste of this particular Spanish fly. The perfect weapon to get those Jehovah's Witnesses off your porch. So let's close it out with Tomb Corpse Harrispex. This was a good one, despite your sniffiness. Yeah.
Yeah, second week in
I
this
think it's
crap,
contagious.
I'm almost over it.
I'm starting to get it too. I think it's contagious. But the important takeaway is that some people need email training.
Yeah, my dad was famous for the extra long text messages about, it would be like gossip and stuff. And then he'd say, "Love Dad" at the end.
And which type of music can I afford?
I don't know. Like I said, that classical looks pretty pricey. Getting
Yeah.
all dressed up. I don't know.
That was the music for like popes and shit. I can't afford that. This has been the Snaggletooth Decay Extreme Music Podcast. Special thanks to the gang from Ruin Dweller for appearing on the show. Snaggletooth theme by Gustav Fjord of Defleshed. Sounds of Decay theme by Steve Rathbone of Lair of the Minotaur. Sounds of Decay bands this week. After you check out Ruin Dweller, make sure you head over to Bandcamp and check out Sacrifice, Teitanblood, and Whitechapel. All content 2025, the Snaggletooth Decay Extreme Music Podcast.
We gotta get over to the park. That guy that plays the double bucket is doing it for free.
This is the Snaggletooth Extreme Metal Podcast.